interrupt?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm here with a guy who's called like Reg Snodgrass. This is like a Benedict Cumberbatch moment, isn't it? It's like something you only hear in Harry Potter, like, oh, Hagrid told us to feed the Snodgrass and we didn't do it, and like it's going to be 10 points for Gryffindor. I'm just so excited to have somebody with a name like that next to me. This is pretty awesome.
I can't even talk about this. Did Andrew tell you this?
No.
This is great. First time I've heard it. Totally. So, tell us what you do. What is Evangelist and Mozilla, and what's the thing that you do?
Well, I mean, I've written a handbook on it because I invented that role when I was in my old company. It's basically an evangelist, a technical evangelist is a translator from technical people to the world and back. So my job is to make very technical things easy to understand and get feedback from the outside world back into the engineering team so they actually implement what the outside world needs and don't come up with solutions that they think the world might need. So it's a translation role, it's a technical role that means you are there to explain your technology to the outside world in different markets, in different environments, and to different people in the right language. So that's what it basically is. It's a good opportunity for a technical person or a developer to go into a role that's more outgoing and a role that actually helps the company more in terms of communication. Because the problem with our market is that as an engineer, you've got like 3 or 4 levels to go, and then the companies come up with random things for you because there's no official role anymore. Sooner or later, you have to become a manager, or you don't get the bigger paycheck, because engineering is only, everybody always says engineering is the most important thing we have, but if you look at the HR pay roles and things, it's not, and that's the problem with that. So I did the developer thing and hacked my own job title and came up with that, and now people like Salesforce and Microsoft and others use my book, which is available for free, just a website really, and they use it in their own training as well. That gets me really excited. It's actually better than trying to sell the book.
So today, like we live in, in like people would say, right, we live in a 2 OS world, right? You've got Apple and you have Android. Now we're looking at, a multiple OS world or a fragmented. It reminds me very much, if I look at the ecosystem, what like Symbian and everything was like before, because everything is disparate, multiple screens, everything is really fragmented. But I think the ecosystem already wants to be whole. So right now, people say that we have 2, maybe 3 OSs in wearable technology. Which is actually pretty comical, right?
I think that's my problem with it as well. I mean, we had the web for a long, long time, and yes, iOS and Android are their own platforms, but without getting content over an internet connectivity, a lot of them are pretty much useless. They're like things that you can use on your machine, but go offline with your mobile phone and see how useful it becomes. You can play games, you can maybe look at the photos that you've already taken, you can take new photos, but 90% of what we do on our mobiles is connected to something and gets things from the internet. So when people say that the platforms are only the platforms that are on the devices, I would say that the web or the internet is the other platform that's super important in this. And in this platform, we always had the fragmentation that we're talking about. As a web developer, I never knew what people used to consume my stuff. And I like that about it. I mean, designers hate it, but I actually like the concept that my end users can totally mess with my stuff and make it unreadable, or more interesting, make it readable and consumable for them because they have a disability, because they are in a third world country where the connectivity is really bad. And I think we should, as consumer generators, as people generate things to be consumed, we should be thinking about different people. But a lot in the wearable space is just thinking about San Francisco and surroundings and expecting everybody to be connected the whole time. We're right now, for example, working on voice recognition that works offline, which is, I think, super important because I don't feel good as a security and privacy conscious person, first of all, to talk to my phone in public. That's just rude on the tube or something like that. But I don't feel good that every time I talk to it, it goes somewhere in the cloud, does some magic with it, and comes back and tells me what's happening on my phone. Where does this data go? Where is my request going? What's happening to my voice footprint? This is the kind of questions that nobody asks. It's a very interesting point to me that everyone's super excited about. Oh, look, I'm totally connected with the internet. but somebody's spying on you at the same time the whole time as well. So we want to make sure that there's a more kind of insight into what's happening with the data that you put in. And heart rate monitoring and like health monitoring is a beautiful thing. It's a good sales pitch. But at the same time, I don't want my heart rate and my health history to be in some cloud that I can control. Because the next time I go for an insurance or something, they can go up to Google and say like, well, actually last week, oh, right, you eat a lot of food, don't you? It's the kind of insights that I want, strangely enough, insight into.
So this is interesting because there's a tension point here, because if the engineers and the developers don't actually get the data to be able to configure it and learn from it, they're not ever going to be able to build the products that like we need in the future. And so I talk a lot about data responsibility. Should that be the message? And I know what we should configure, right? Because the last thing I want is for everybody to know what I did this weekend before they give me an insurance quote, because I guarantee it will be a lot higher, right? And so, where's the rub? Like, how do we fix this? Because how are engineers going to be able to understand context and create this contextual world if we don't have some type of ability to touch the data? Where do we go?
Standards and open protocols is where we need to go. It's very easy to build something amazingly fast and beautiful if you're totally closed. And you give people, like engineers say like, okay, you want to start working on my platform? Here's the 6 gigabyte SDK that you have to download. Like, how exciting is it for somebody in Bangladesh where the 6 gigabyte would take 12 months to download? So we have to. I mean, it sounds weird that when you sort of talk about standards helping innovation and being open, but we need to know what we're using. The time of magic in computers is over. I think it's just unfair to, in 2014, to tell people that, oh, this just works, don't worry about it. We've been told that too many times. Too many people relied on cloud providers that went away. Too many people relied on map providers that said it's going to be free forever. Like, we need actually insights into what we do, and this is with open standards and open practices. And the W3C is working on a few things, but maybe for a wearable space we need a different group to actually go together and do something with it.
I would love to see, Mozilla taking the lead in that. I mean, you're just, in general, like, I think that you guys represent so much about the open internet and about, net neutrality on the side of the consumer. I think that there's a space for you. Here's my question, like, what do you see from your point of view and your understanding of, like, the open ecosystem, where the opportunities are going to be in wearable technology in the near term and even in the mid to long term? So what's sexy there?
I think what disappoints me, and I've got the 360 here because I got it for free, I wouldn't buy it. I think the problem right now is that these are tiny touch screens that are external monitors to our phones. And I'm sorry, this is not worth my money, because right now I'm just basically, everything that happens on my phone happens on my watch, and I can, oh look, that's halfway to my daily goal of my heart rate, awesome. But it's also a watch that I have to touch to read the time. And that is an extra step that I didn't have to do with any other watch before. So we broke the original use case, and we give you things that are already happening in your pocket. I think the interesting bit will be once we go into the accelerometer space, once we go into a measuring space, like with things like leap motion, you can detect fingers. Why can't I do it on a wearable? That instead of having to put my arm up and touch the thing and effectively having to use 2 hands, why can't I have different finger gestures to do different things? Like triple taps with my fingers doing something else, then putting these 2 fingers together. This would be something that excites me about this. And also wearables that are not on my wrist or on my face, but actually as part of my body. If I could, I mean, with a headset, I have a control with the volume and skipping to the next track just on my headset here. Why don't I have something in my jacket here that I could do a tap like this?
So these kind of things. Drum pants, you're gonna love them. I don't know if you guys seen drum pants. That's exactly what they do. Super cool company, by the way.
Yeah. I think that's the space where we should go, which is, I think we're limited in our vision right now, because all we do is like, oh, smartwatches, because Dick Tracy had one, that's probably the future, so let's do that as well. And I've used glass before. I think it has a good implementation in things like surgery and in the army, but I don't think in day-to-day life, I think it's far too intrusive in what it does right now. And especially I wear glasses, so it would be too expensive for me to get the extra ones and these kind of things. And what excites me about it is the space, what I can do with it. If I could control a game on my TV set just by having my smartwatch on my arm and not needing another remote control, that's really cool. But voice recognition as the only thing that needs to be connected all the time is something we have to fix as well. I want voice recognition offline. Also, I want these things to be independent of the phone. Right now I have to get Bluetooth on my phone on this, make them talk to each other, eat more battery, rather than having a SIM card in it. But then of course you have the problem with your data plan. Then do you then pay 2 SIM cards, or do you get a second SIM card on the same data plan? That's something for mobile providers or like connectivity providers to fix, and I think that's going to be an interesting as well. The William thing that he just released, that looks interesting, but I couldn't quite get the technical details in the midst of all this marketing speak, let's put it like that, because there's lots of like promises there, but I don't know how that's going to work. But I think the idea of just having a phone in my arm, that's not a bad idea. And then when he showed the case, like, call that dude I met yesterday, that was quite interesting as well.
Well, cool. So for time, we've got like a couple questions, I think, in the audience that we can actually drop out. Does anyone have a real quick question? Go ahead. You again.
Yeah, Christian, you're advocating the importance of the web platform, but how important is the web really for wearable technology? Is there not the risk of seeing wearable technologies as kind of smartphones on your risk? Is that not repeating the mistake of people seeing cars as horseless carriages or the TV as radio with pictures? Is it quite a different kind of content we're going to need there? The
question was if there's different content on smartwatches than the web provides at the moment. Yes, in terms of a form factor, definitely, but the good thing about the web as a form factor is that it can adapt, and it was built to adapt, whereas an optimized just for smartwatches operating system will be outdated by the next smartwatch factor coming out. I won't be surprised if sooner or later we get like a thing that like Leela in like Futurama has, like a longer thing on your arm or something like that, and then you have to rewrite your apps again. I mean, that's the interesting thing about the round factor as well right now. Like a lot of stuff that I cannot write in CSS because there's no round shape. But at the same time, I loved it at the Apple keynote that all your friends have to have 4-letter names, otherwise they don't fit in the grid anyway. So I had to kick a lot of people out of my address book. It's really annoying.
You can be Chris.
But the flexibility of the web will be that as well, and we've seen it on the mobile space as well. When smartphones came out, everybody said like, "Ooh, nobody's using a browser. That's totally pointless." But now the new Safari on iOS 8 is amazing, and I finally can do WebGL games and all the things that I did in web technology on Android and on Firefox OS before as well. So it's catching up. And I think as much as we declare the web dead, every 2 years when something new comes out, strangely enough, it always comes back. And I find that the exciting thing about it, because you cannot kill something that's distributed.
Okay, you had a question in the back, unless it was answered.
It was a little bit similar to that one, but you mentioned William's cuff, I guess.
Yeah, that's what we call it, yeah.
Smartphone replacement, but I mean, smartphones today are used more for content consumption, which is why they're bigger to some degree. And so it slightly flies in the face of that. I'm wondering how that kind of works.
Yeah, I'm not going to fix William's problems, but you're totally right that the consumption and the creation of content, especially taking photos on the wrist, is not a good idea, because they will always be blurry no matter what you do. Our muscles are not built that way. The consumption is my biggest problem with the small screens right now as well. I mean, I work for Mozilla where people love to write long emails, and I get this like, "Oh, you got a new email." Oh, now I got my heart rate again. Like, the consuming part of it is not quite there yet. And this is, again, where I would think that a gesture interface would be a much more interesting thing. The problem with these that we have right now, and I'm solving other people's problems, and I'm not a designer or product designer, I think just by the time I do a touch on that, I used like 20% of the screen already because my finger is fat. So we have to find a better way of doing that. Maybe something like a leap motion technology where I hover over the thing to do things might be a more interesting way also to consume. But the consumption on smartphones is mostly Facebook as well. So if we write shorter Facebook messages, it works again.
Okay, so one last question, Miriam.
No, I don't give you a mic. You're going to do a half an hour talking again.
I just want to add that these are problems that we're working on, and I think that the future of the smartwatch interface is about breaking down the idea that content is the notification. The notification has become the new content. And as such, what you want is, like the concept of apps on a watch, we're doing it today, but it's a really flawed concept. Because when you think about it, you have to have a binary payload that's sent to your device and updated. Now you can manage multiple devices, binary payloads. It's a pain in the ass. What you really want is some sort of markup language describing notifications as content that are actionable and can actually run as apps on the watch, and are basically the notification every time you pump one into your watch becomes the app, and then you can act and do something, and then you get a stream of these coming in, and you have a timeline you can go through back and forth. That's, I think, the future of at least one of the future of smartwatch use. And touchscreens are flawed, absolutely.
So with that, Christian, I thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate getting to know you a little bit better through the process, and can't wait to see all the cool stuff you do next with your career, particularly like in Mozilla and just beyond. Like this guy just codes shit over the weekend and shows me random stuff. I'm like, wow, that's really awesome. So thank you very much.